Welcome back to the Gym Podcast. Today we are going to get into the difference between confidence versus arrogance, which I actually think is more of a nuanced discussion than most people think, because a lot of people can look at confidence as kind of a negative thing, right? And one of the reasons we wanted to tackle this is because we're talking about striving for greatness. We're talking about being the best that we can be. And just to jump right into it, the last 5 weeks have been about us building ourselves up to be the best we can be, to strive for greatness, to set the workout habit, to set the relationship with God. And with that, the confidence should be rising. But how do we make sure we don't go too far? How do we make sure that we don't fall into the terrible habits of arrogance and just getting a giant head about some of the things that we do?
Well, because for guys specifically, this can be a pretty big struggle, right? You think about the 5 most arrogant people you know. They're probably all guys, right? Yeah. That's a generalization, but typically this is something that guys struggle with a whole lot more than girls. And personally speaking, this has always been a struggle of mine, is knowing where is the line that goes from confidence to arrogance. I've been called arrogant before. I have had my moments of arrogance. I know it's something that I continue to try to work on, but it's something that I know a lot of guys are asking, and something a lot of guys struggle with is this. Sure. They're arrogant, and they're arrogant about their abilities. They're arrogant about the things that they can do, their knowledge, you name it. They're arrogant about it. And that's obviously not a good thing. The Bible talks about pride, and I think it was C.S. Lewis that talked about pride kind of being the root of all sins. And so pride is not good.
Right.
The other side of the coin, though, is this idea of confidence. And culture, the reason we started this podcast, the Godly Young Men podcast, is because culture is kind of shouting men down, right? Trying to turn them into a bunch of weaklings.
Yeah, and taking away anything of confidence.
Exactly. We don't think that's a good thing either. For all you young men watching, don't be a weakling. Don't be somebody who's wimpy. Don't be weak. And so on the other side of that, though, the pendulum can sometimes swing way too far in the other direction. You see guys like Andrew Tate, for instance. I'm sure a lot of our watchers are familiar with him. Not the most upstanding guy in the world, but he's made his living off of what? Kind of this brash, abrasive, jerk mentality that comes from masculinity. It's kind of a pendulum swing in the other direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Being cocky or confident in all or arrogant really in all of the wrong areas. He's arrogant in how many cars he owns and the women that he gets and all of those things.
How much money he makes.
How much money he makes. That's not where we find our confidence ultimately. But that's what the world sees. And so, as guys start to get confident, they can easily see, they point to him and go, oh, you're going to be an Andrew Tate. Oh, you're going to be one of those gym bros that just shows off his body all the time. Oh, that's going to be you. There's a huge spot in between for guys like us, I think, who can be confident. We don't have to be weaklings. We don't have to be, poor pitiful me. And that's something you talked about, this being a struggle for you. It's a struggle for me because growing up in hockey is known as kind of a humble sport. Yeah. Like, you score 5 goals, you don't want to
keep your head down.
You keep your head down, and when they ask you after the game, wow, you got 5 goals, it's like, well, the boys were playing great tonight. They, fed me the puck. That is
kind of deflect.
Yes,
defer.
Always deflect. And anytime you see a hockey player who doesn't, you go, well, that's kind of weird. And that's what I grew up in. And so I have kind of I don't know if it's false humility or whatever it is, and that's not good either. And we want to get into that later as well.
Well, let me start with this question, and rather than putting you on the spot, I'll answer it first and then get your thoughts, because we're kind of going off of this assumption that confidence is a good thing. But that's a question that we want to start out by asking. Is confidence a good thing? Because I don't know of anybody personally that would argue this, but I'm sure there are people out there that would say young men need to kind of stay away from confidence. And they'd probably argue that because it does tend to lead toward arrogance. But in asking this question, is confidence a good thing? I think confidence is a great thing. In fact, that's one of the things that I really hope to instill in my right now 14-month-old son, Jackson. He's got a lot of confidence right now. But as he gets older, is to have confidence. Because to me, there's nothing more annoying than being around a guy who not just isn't confident, but is just completely in the other direction, that is insecure, right?
Yes.
And I know there's arguments, and you could probably get into this more with your therapy, about the arguments that kind of everybody has some insecurities, but I'm sure all of you have been around the guy that just wears his insecurities on his sleeve, exudes no confidence whatsoever, is always kind of in his shell, and just... I'll be honest, maybe it's just me. I don't enjoy being around those types of people.
No.
It's frustrating, especially guys specifically, guys that are not confident. So that's something that I really hope. It's a great thing to be confident. It's something that I'm going to encourage my son to be confident in. I encourage other guys to be confident in. That would be one reason. What do you have to add?
Yeah, no, I think that's where you get into the pseudoscience of alpha, beta, gamma.
Sure.
The males, or what's the other one? The sigma male. And it's really about confidence. It's about hierarchy. It's about the guys that, and you see the guys that just aren't. And it's a bummer to have a guy who's constantly fishing for compliments. To the other side of it, think about what do girls want? What do girls want?
Yeah,
is confidence a good thing? Of course it's a good thing. Why? Because girls are attracted to confidence. One of the great things that God designed men for is to go out and get a woman and to marry her and to have kids and to build a strong Christian family. That's one of the most beautiful things you can see. It's a representation of so many things that are good.
It's one of those traits that is pretty much very high on every woman's list about what do they look for in a man.
Because what woman nobody
puts on their list, I really want an insecure guy.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And what they'll say is, I want a humble guy, which is true. But can we be humble and confident? Yes, you can. And if you are equating humility with a lack of confidence, that's wrong.
It's not the same, yeah.
No, it's insecurity is what that breeds. And so a woman looks at a guy who, I just don't know. I don't know if I'm good at this. I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know that I have any skills. That's not appealing to anybody.
Because the woman might feel like they constantly have to build him up.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
her job, is to constantly build him up. Same thing like I was talking about with the guy friend group. If you're a confident guy and you're around somebody who's not confident, you kind of feel like it's your job to just kind of have to build them up over and over again.
You're good, man. You're good. Like, how many times do I have to tell you you're good before you start believing it? But they need that affirmation. They need you to tell them that. And sure, I'll try to help them. I'll be a friend. At the same time, it's a drag. It is to always have to have somebody
around, sure.
to drag somebody along. And with the girls, they're attracted to that. So can we say confidence is a good thing? Yes,
absolutely.
I think absolutely. The next question would be, how do you get it? How do you gain confidence? Because we do have a lot of young men who, look, if you're a big video game guy, you may have confidence that you're great at video games, but you may not have confidence with the girls. We got an episode coming up on that.
Next week, actually.
Next week.
For Valentine's Day specifically.
How to talk to
Valentine's
girls.
Day special, yeah.
That's right. So we got some things planned, that one and a few others, in terms of talking to people and social confidence and such.
And again, not to cut you off, you can finish this line of thought thinking in a second. All of this in the context of being a godly young man. I don't want us to get lost. We're going to bring up some biblical things here in just a second, but yes, strive for greatness. Yes, try to excel in everything that you do, all within the context of giving glory to God and being a godly young man. We believe that confidence very much can and should play into being a godly young man. It's not at the expense of it. It plays into this godly young man role that we want to fill.
When you see Paul going out to these congregations, when you see him writing to Corinth, writing to Galatia, I do not get the sense that Paul is a wimpy man.
Right.
I do not get the sense that he lacks confidence in what he's doing. First off, he's got the Holy Spirit for sure, and he's an apostle of God, but I don't get the sense that Paul is wimpy in any sense of the word. That was great. God used a confident man, and even Peter, he's confident. You see the New Testament.
Peter's confidence gets him into trouble a few times in the New Testament.
He may go into the other side, and even Paul, I think, I used to think was incredibly arrogant, but what I'm realizing now is
imitate me.
Imitate me as I'm like Christ. Excuse me, what?
Right.
But difference in context, you start studying and you realize Paul's just confident in what he knows, and that's really great. So as you're talking, as men of God, as we're trying to be men of God, this is what makes great leaders. Do you really want a president who gets into office and goes, I have no idea what I'm doing?
What do you think? I don't know. Yeah.
How about you take the lead? No, you want somebody who goes, I know exactly what I'm doing, and I'm taking a step in the direction.
And then let's get to the question of how do you gain it.
Sure.
Why this is so important for godly young men is because to lead a family, what do you need to have?
That's right.
You better have some confidence.
Right.
To lead your children, to lead your wife, to be the man that God designed you to be, you can't do that job as effectively if you're a wimp, if you're a weakling, if you're somebody who's just not very confident. It's the guys that are confident that lead their family the way they're supposed to.
And if your wife constantly, as we reference, if she constantly has to pick you up, right? She constantly has to make you feel better.
If she's the rock of the family,
she's the rock. You always go to her to help you feel like you're a man. That's not her job.
That ain't great.
That ain't great. That's not her job. And that tells me she wears the pants in the family.
Right.
That upsets the hierarchy. It upsets the very understanding of what God wanted in the family. We need strong males who are willing to take that role gladly.
So if you're watching this and you're not married, this is where, and maybe you're watching it going, well, I'm not that confident. That's the need for this episode. That's why we want to start now, basically, with this idea of confidence. So let's get to that question, Joe.
Sure.
How do you gain confidence? If you're somebody who's watching this that maybe struggles with insecurities, maybe has no confidence in any realm or aspect of their life, what would be some steps? I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but how do you gain confidence? I'll leave it at that.
First and foremost, I think you have to stop caring what people think about really about you in general, other than God and maybe those you love.
Stop caring what unimportant people think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my dad used to tell me, like, if you only knew how little people thought of you, and not little in terms of how bad people, but in terms of how much time people spent, it would matter like very little to you. But we can spend so much time getting in our own heads, and it drops our confidence. What if they think I'm weird? What if they think I'm this? People don't care.
Yeah,
in their own
I was
heads.
talking to somebody the other day about they don't go to the gym very much. And like, man, I just feel like everybody's looking at me. And I told them, nobody's watching. Nobody cares. They're there to work out. They're not watching you going, huh, look at that person. You know what I mean? But it's that mindset of, man, are people looking at me? Stop caring about that kind of stuff.
And if you go to the gym and everybody's looking,
big
so
deal.
what?
Yeah.
So what? If they are, well, what if they think I look stupid? And that means what? Okay, some
person that you'll never meet.
That's right, that you'll never meet. You don't care about them. You don't agree with them on anything else. But hey, they think you're dumb. That we have to get out of the mindset of what other people think, especially unimportant people in your life, what they think matters to me.
You brought up an important point, though, about we do need to care what God thinks, for sure. It's not this mindset of, again, kind of the Andrew Tate, I don't care what anybody thinks, right? Just forget everybody. You obviously need to care what God thinks because we're trying to be godly young men, and you need to care what your family and the people that you love, your brothers and sisters in Christ. It's not as if you need to go through life going, let me just tick off as many people as I can and just completely disregard other people's feelings. That's not it. But I think so many times young men can get so focused on, again, kind of the unimportant people. Yep. They kind of push aside maybe their family, push aside those they love. They just really want to impress social media followers or people that they interact with, on a very surface, shallow level. Man, don't care about those people. Care about the people that matter.
Is that not all social media, though?
Exactly.
That's
your
really
Facebook friends or Instagram followers,
Twitter
right?
followers, your TikTok followers. I don't even know what they call them on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok.
Right.
But the people that are seeing your content, wow, they think I'm great, and they'll think you're terrible tomorrow. Okay, so it's fickle. What about what God thinks? That is, God is never changing. God is not going to turn his back on you. And if he's proud of you, then he's proud of you.
Right.
What do we see at Jesus' baptism? This is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased. There's a certain level of pride that God has for Jesus as he's looking down. I think he has that for us as his sons, as sons of God. He cares about us. He shows confidence in us.
Yeah.
He has confidence that we can go out and do it because he created us. He knows what we're capable of doing. That's what matters. And if we're out there living however we want, we go, man, I don't know that God would like this. Yeah, you're probably right.
Right.
Now, everybody else might, but who cares really what that what that says?
So once you start there and you worry about what God thinks and you worry about, what your family thinks and are you presenting Christ in a good way, stop there. Basically, like, again, for trying to keep track, our first point here on how to gain confidence is stop caring about what all these unimportant people think. Just stop. It's not that big a deal. Just don't worry about it. The second thing that I'll get into here on how to gain confidence would be, would be, man, go out and do something that you can be proud of. This gets into a little bit of our strive for greatness kind of idea. That's kind of the generic thing about, man, go out and do something that you can be proud of. Go on the spiritual end. Go write a sermon. Go read through the New Testament in a month. Go do something that you can look back on and not to, again, we're going to get to arrogance in a second, but not to be arrogant and boastful, look how great I am, but that you can look at that, man, that was an accomplishment. Yeah. That's something that I did that was great. And maybe more on the secular end, learn an instrument, master a sport. I'm still trying to master golf, and it is going very poorly.
I was going to say, I think you and I will both be there for a couple decades.
But it's that, exactly. But it's that idea, right, of go do something that you can be proud of. Man, that can instill some confidence.
What did God do? As he builds, 6 days of creation, he rests on the seventh. What does he say after each? This is good, right?
Yeah.
There's that confidence, like, I know it was good. I made it.
Yeah.
It's great. It was very good when he made man. That's what we want to do, is we want to have something like that where we build it, we do it, we create it, we make it, and we go out there and we say, that's good, and I can have confidence in my ability to do it. And the more that we do that, I get sucked into these videos on Facebook or whatever it is of these like super fast workers who are just very efficient. They're great at their jobs. The window washing guys or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It just makes my heart glad. It's
But they've mastered it.
But they mastered it, and you go, whoa.
Yeah.
Now, did they do that the first time? No. Did they do it the second? No. That's probably the 10,000th time
Right.
they've done that. But it's incredible to watch because they're good at their craft. Now, if somebody comes up to them and goes, "How do you do that?" I really don't know. It's like, be confident. You're
Right,
incredible. I want to know how to do that.
I don't know. You could do just as good a job as I could. Like,
Exactly.
no, you couldn't.
Oh, doesn't take that much. Like, no, it probably does.
Right.
So be willing to say. And so, yeah, part of that is go out, challenge yourself. The key part of what you said is make sure that you're challenging you. It has to be something that you see as a challenge and that you can build confidence in and that you care about. Because if it's for somebody else or if it's as we're building this confidence and you're just really hoping that girl's going to see. You're really hoping your parents are going to be proud of you. And then your parents are like, "I'm sorry, you did what?" Mom, Dad, I cleaned the entire garage. Like, "Oh, yeah, thanks, honey. All right, cool." And you go, "Oh, I'm not going to do that again." It can't be about somebody else.
You did it for them.
You're right. You did it for them because they didn't show the appropriate amount of appreciation or pride or whatever it is in you. You lose confidence.
Yeah.
And not only do you lose confidence, you grow bitter and you go, "Well, never going to do that again." If you do it for you because you go, "I think I can get there. I think I can climb that peak.
Yep.
I think I can climb that mountain." You go, "Cool. Well, let's do it." And you go do it. And then when that's accomplished, the feeling that you get ought to boost your confidence, ought to boost the pride that you have in yourself.
I want you to get into the last one that we have here in just a second, as far as how to gain confidence. But I want to go back to the apostles for just a second. And you think about the New Testament. We don't have a verse for you that says, yes, this is how you become confident, or this is what turns confidence into arrogance. But the principles of it that you already spoke of with the apostles, you think about Peter denying Christ, cursing, looking over and seeing Jesus. What do you think his confidence level was at that point after, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But what he did to bring himself up back out of that to be able to preach the first gospel sermon, you think he had nerves? You think he was intimidated? Well, the Holy Spirit was a pretty big factor there, so I don't know about the nerves part. But you know what I mean? Like, he was at a very low point in his life.
Yeah.
Brought himself back up. Same thing with Paul. Spent his life persecuting Christians and had a 3-day wake-up call that was like, wow.
That's right.
And you know what I mean? Obviously, again, Spirit was at work and at play there as well. But you see what I'm getting at? The fact that it can be so easy in our culture today to kind of wallow in our self-pity and wallow in our insecurities and lack of self-confidence. Man, Peter very easily could have done that. He didn't.
That's right.
And so that's what we're talking about, these biblical precepts of pushing through it. And again, striving for greatness, not to keep beating that dead horse, but to continue to have that confidence. But get us into the last one about kind of how to gain confidence.
Yeah, so in my private practice with my clients, therapy practice, it's interesting when you ask people, I always ask them, if they're really struggling with self-confidence, I say, well, scale of 1 to 10. Where's your self-confidence? Oh, man, it's probably at a 3. I said, I always say that I ask them 2 questions to that. I say, first off, what would it take to get to maybe a 4? Everybody wants to jump to a 10. You're nowhere close to a 10.
Sure.
You're not jumping to a 10, and if you can jump that fast, you'll lose it that fast. What'll it take to get to a 4? That's a little bit of what we hit on of, okay, push yourself, right?
Yeah.
I would need this. But the second question I ask is, why do you think it's only a 3? What's holding you back? What keeps you
kind of like, why is your confidence that low?
That's right. Yeah. Why is it that low? You need to, especially if you're struggling in confidence, you're struggling to really feel like you're important in the least. Why? What's keeping you there? We have to know. So I would say, I'd actually tell our listeners or watchers, 1 to 10, where's your self-confidence?
Self-diagnose.
Self-diagnose and say, all right, I'm at a 3. Well, why are you at a 3? Why is it only a 3? Why not more? What's keeping you at a 3? And what would it take to get to that 4?
That's so simple.
It's so simple.
It's a matter of like diagnosing the problem, or like you have a problem, but until you actually diagnose it, you don't know why you're there.
You'd be shocked how many people come up with amazing things on their own.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's just framed in a way that's like, yeah, well, first off, it's admitting we have a problem.
Yeah.
It's kind of the first step of any 12-step program, right? Is you got to admit you have a problem. You admit, my confidence is not at a 10.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that it is. It's not.
Yeah.
My confidence is at a 5, or even if it's at a 6, that's great. But what would it take to get a little more? And when you incrementally do it, they go, well, I guess I can, I guess I could probably go on that diet this week and really push that. And you go, wow, that's great. And they move up. You have to know why you're where you're at, though. That's such a key point to gaining confidence, because if there's something that's a real drain on your confidence that you're not taking care of, for instance, porn addiction.
Sure.
That drains people's confidence big time because they can't look people in the eyes. There's a lot of shame. There's things like that.
Yeah.
If you're struggling with shame, that erodes confidence. And when we say, well, you just go out and conquer that mountain, you go, okay, great. Now what? I still am full of shame. We have to figure out what is it keeping us from feeling confident and take care of that as well.
I think that's great. And obviously we could have put a lot more answers on there,
Sure.
but those are kind of some starting points about how to gain confidence. Let's switch gears.
Yeah.
And let's talk about arrogance, because again, that's what we're talking, confidence versus arrogance. So I guess kind of our overall question here is, at what point does confidence turn into arrogance? Because again, we have established the case that confidence is a good thing.
That's right.
It's something young men should strive for. If they don't have it, look for it. At the same time, it can be so easy for it to turn into arrogance. It can be so easy to have somebody who's incredibly confident and it just bleeds all the way over into arrogance. And so, again, question being, at what point does confidence turn into arrogance? And I'll give kind of my portion and then let you go before we kind of get into some practical do's and don'ts to wrap up. For me, when I think about this question, a lot of it comes down to, is your confidence inward facing or outward facing?
Yeah.
And you kind of already hit on it earlier. What I mean by that is, is your confidence more so for what makes you, how you feel and how you think about yourself, or is it more, I want everybody else to think this about me, right? Do you want to do really good at your job and make a lot of money because you want to provide for your family and because you want to, feel that sense of accomplishment, or so that you can look at everybody else and go, man, I make more money than them.
That's right.
I have a better status than them. I have a better job than them. Look at me. You see what I mean? That's a very outward facing mentality. And I think whether it be anything, the way you look, and maybe you can get into some of those, the moment it becomes outward facing and worry about what everybody else thinks, rather than, are you doing this for you or are you doing this for God's glory? That's when it can you can go down the slippery slope of arrogance.
That's right. Interestingly, I think arrogance comes from the same place that insecurity comes, or that no confidence comes from, which is insecurity.
Sure.
Like, if I need other people, I'm so concerned about what people think about me, I have no confidence. Or I'm so concerned what people think about me, I have to project that I have confidence.
Yeah.
Arrogance is a projection of that. So when I strut into the room and I go, I'm the greatest.
Mr. Big Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Big Stuff. Who am I trying to impress there? Who am I trying to please? And why do I have to let everybody know I'm the greatest? Because I don't believe it myself, but if I can get you to believe it, it makes it so.
You think about sports and sports examples, there are a lot of showboat players that are really good, but you'll typically see the best players. You pick your sport, NFL, NBA, not as sure about NHL, but you pick your of the major sports. Who are the best players out there? Is it the guys that are strutting, telling everybody how great they are and look at me and celebrating? Is usually the guys that show up, do their job. Right. Yeah, they'll get energized and excited, but they're not going around to every press conference going, I'm the best there ever was. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's the guys that are typically out there boastful, that it's like, okay, yeah, you're having to say that because you don't actually believe it, and you know that nobody else believes it too.
That's exactly it. You're compensating. You're overcompensating.
Overcompensating, that's right.
And arrogance is very much rooted in that. I think that's great. I mean, some of the points we had on the outline go back to the same thing of, when you're working to excel in your academics or whatever it is, you can turn to, or even making money, you can turn that into an obsession about, as you referenced, I'm smarter.
Being better than everybody else.
Better,
yeah.
I'm richer. I'm this. I'm that. So what?
Yeah.
Again, if it goes back to if you swing the pendulum to the other side and you say, okay, I lack confidence because I worry about what people think. So what people think? If you swing to the other side and you're arrogant and you're constantly trying to get people to think certain, so what?
Yeah.
So what? It really doesn't matter. People on both ends of the spectrum, they may love you, they may hate you. That doesn't matter. What does God think of you? Confidence is rooted in, I'm okay with God. And we see this with somebody like David, with somebody like Paul, imitate me as I'm like Christ. David calls himself righteous multiple times. There's a confidence in that, a confidence in themselves that I stand before God justified and righteous.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No. That's the key, and not having to worry about. David's not trying to convince everybody else he's righteous.
Yeah.
He's resting in the fact he knows between him and God that he is.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we can do that not just in our jobs and our money making and all that. We can do that in our spiritual life, right?
Absolutely.
You look down at other people and you work to excel in your relationship, and your Bible knowledge can very easily turn into, man, I'm a whole lot better than that person. Yeah. I study my Bible. I've got way more Bible knowledge than that person. I'm a way better preacher than that person. Yeah. You fill in the blank, right? That is not good. That's something that we need to be very careful of as godly young men, striving for greatness and striving to better our relationship with God. Don't turn it into I just really want to be better than that person. Right. And as long as I'm better than that person, no, you're doing it for God.
Right.
And so that would be the other thing that I would add. Apply it to any of these things, though.
Yep. So what is arrogance? Let's get back to that. What's the difference? Where do we fall? And to distill it all, honestly, I think when you need the approval of somebody else,
Yeah.
when you want, like, it, yeah, you crave it, but you also need
Or
them to
for
think
when that's the
something.
purpose of you doing it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I need them to believe that I'm great. I need them to believe X, Y, or Z. Then we start projecting. Then we start boasting. Then we start, you don't need them to believe any certain thing, right? That's where arrogance really, I think confidence goes to arrogant. I can walk into a room and be confident that I am the whatever. I'm the smartest one in the room. Not likely. But I could walk into a room and be confident that that's the case. Do I need to let everybody else know that? No. I know it within myself. I'm confident that that's the case. If somebody wants to challenge me, I'll let them know what I know. What does it matter if they all think that I'm super smart?
Yep.
Really, what does it matter? It matters to me that, and if we have it in ourselves, then it's not a threat when somebody smarter comes into the room.
Exactly.
If I'm boasting about how smart I am, and then another guy who's just like Mensa level smart, I mean, just incredibly smart, walks in, all of a sudden I'm insecure. I'm no longer the smart one.
Yeah.
That's who I am. That's my identity. I'm the smart one. And I had to let everybody know I'm the smart one. Now I'm no longer, who am I now?
Yeah.
We have an identity crisis because we have been boasting about who we are. No. Confidently, quietly, know that you're smart and leave it at that.
Right.
That guy can be smart too. He may be smarter than you. You may have some things to learn. Cool.
Right.
That's all right. We can be confident in what we know while being humble enough to accept what we don't know.
Right.
So I want to get us into the last section, which is do's and don'ts.
Sure.
Just some quick do's and don'ts. We have a few for each, and something we've been talking obviously about. We don't want to be cocky. We don't want to be arrogant. We definitely want to be confident. But this is the breakdown, the distillation. The practical. If you get anything out of this, get this part. So I'm going to let you lead us.
Yeah, the first thing I would say is don't have fake humility. Fake humility is something, it's kind of the idea that when you do a good job on something and somebody comes up and tells you that, you kind of go, no, kind of, you deflect it again. You brush it aside. No, I'm really not that great. Listen, that's not the best way to go about it. Right. We're not saying don't have humility and don't be humble, but again, there's nothing more annoying than that person, right? That you know that they're not actually being humble. They just think it's the right thing to say. And so that, it's okay to say, thank you very much. I worked hard on it. You know what I mean? I'm thinking the example of you presenting a sermon, right? Nothing wrong with you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Worked hard on it. I'm glad you enjoyed it, as opposed to, it really wasn't that great. No, I'm really not that great of a speaker.
Right.
No, the fake humility
Got lucky.
thing. Right, yeah. That fake humility is just not something that is very becoming of a young man, I would say. And so if you're going to be humble, find other ways to manifest it. I'll give one more and then I'll turn it over to you. Yeah. Don't be the person. So that'd be one don't. The other don't would be, don't be the one-up guy.
Oh, man.
Everybody watching this has been around somebody who is a one-up guy. Maybe you're a one-up guy. I hope not. But, it's the guy when somebody's telling a story or telling about something that they did. There's always that guy that's like, has to one-up them somehow and say, oh, but
check this out.
You got up at 6 a.m. worked out. I got up at 5:45 and worked out.
That's right.
You know what I mean? You worked out for 30 minutes. I worked out for 35 minutes. You know what I mean? Like somebody telling about a cool place they went and visit. I went to Hawaii. Dude, that's nothing. I went to Alaska. You know what I mean? Don't be that person. That's not the type of confidence we're talking about you always. And again, that goes to the arrogance of always kind of doing it for other people's validation. Man, don't be the one-up guy that always makes the conversation about how much better you are than everybody else because you one-up everybody all the time.
That's such a good point. There's nothing worse than you are really proud of a story that you have or whatever else, and then some guy comes in and
3 seconds in,
cuts your knees out. Oh, but that's nothing. Oh, thanks, man. I guess that's nothing. That's cool. I'll make sure to never say anything else around you. So I think those are great don'ts. Another don't that I would say is don't be the person that always talks about yourself.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Man, where you turn and I've noticed, I've been here myself before, where you notice that all conversations kind of come back around to something that relates to you.
Yeah.
And what this shows is you're actually not confident in what you don't know. That's one of the things I said is, if everything always comes back to something that you know because you're out of your depth in other areas, that tells me you struggle to learn. You struggle to just accept. Man, I'm swimming. I have no idea. I used to talk.
I'm out of my depth here. Yeah,
that's right. I used to talk to some guys that were very knowledgeable in science. I'm an idiot when it comes to science. I know nothing. Barely passed chemistry. I like biology. That's about where I stopped.
Sure.
Any science beyond that, not good. And I talk to these guys, and they're just brainiacs and know everything about it. Adopt a curious approach.
Yeah,
I think that's so
good.
important to adopt a curiosity when it comes to that. Don't
You
be
don't
the person,
you don't always have to have the smartest thing to say or the
Correct,
most
yeah.
intelligent sounding thing to
where
say.
it always comes back to you and what you know, and but there's this one time, and that's kind of like what I do, or no, be
Yeah.
willing to say, I know nothing about that. That's very interesting. Tell me a little more.
That's the humility side, and something
Right.
I forgot to bring up earlier is that you talk about Peter and Paul. Jesus was incredibly meek, and Jesus said, "Blessed are the meek, for
Right.
they shall inherit the earth." Jesus had this attitude of humility and this attitude of meekness. He also wasn't a wimp. He
Yeah.
wasn't a weakling, and so Jesus is the man's man, the man that we're trying to be like in the Godly Young Men podcast, the man that we're looking to. So as you study the Gospels, look to be like Jesus. Jesus was very confident when he was in the temple flipping tables.
That's right. He knew what
Jesus
he was
was very
about.
confident when he was looking around condemning the Pharisees, saying, "You're worse than a whitewashed tomb." But he was also meek.
And at 12, what do? He's
Yeah.
they leave him behind. He comes back to the temple and he says, I'm doing my Father's work.
I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. What are you doing?
Yeah, when they come to find him, and this is where I am. He knew what he was about.
Exactly.
That's confidence right there, all the way back to 12, and he grew in stature, and we see that in Luke 2. And
So that gets us into some of the do's. We
Yes,
just gave you
exactly.
3 don'ts.
Exactly.
I'll give the first do and then
Sure.
give it to you for the last one. I would say do recognize what you're good at, and then don't shy away from that. Again, it's kind of the fake humility thing. Don't try to deflect and say that you're not good at. No, recognize what you're good at, and again,
own it.
Yeah, own it. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, you would say that you are. I don't want to speak for you. There are certain things that you would say you're very good at, and for you to say that, it's not arrogant. It's confidence. Same thing with me. I'm sure you have something. Don't shy away from that. Don't try to act like, man, you're just a untalented person that doesn't do anything well, doesn't do anything right. Don't do that.
Right.
Recognize what you're good at, and don't shy away from it. Own it would be the first thing that I would say.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Second one I would say is do find areas to excel and grow.
Yeah.
That's part of the humility, is recognizing what I don't know, but have the confidence in yourself. Have confidence in things like, again, curiosity. I'm confident that I'm somebody who can learn.
Yeah.
Instead of, I'm confident in what I already know. Okay, that's good. Be confident in that, but also be confident in, I'm somebody who really likes to learn. I'm confident in my curiosity, my spark for creativity, whatever it is, because that's going to push you through. I'm confident in something that won't change. If you're confident, again, in I'm the smartest guy in the room and somebody else walks in, you got a complex. If you're confident in, I just love to learn, somebody else walks into the room that's smarter, you go, man, let me go learn from him. That's great.
Yeah.
So have confidence in that. Find areas where you can excel, where you are good at something. You may be good at, I don't know, woodworking. You may be good at a certain sport. Hockey was my sport. I was good at hockey. Was I the best? By no means. Was I good? Yeah, I can confidently say I was good. Do I need to project that to others?
Right.
No. But at the same time, find areas where you can excel. Find areas that you're already good. Grow in those areas. Find areas you're not and grow. I'm going to add one more to the end, which is do find your confidence in God. We've talked about that, and I wanted to give a little more on that. When we say find your confidence in God, like that sounds really spiritual. That sounds really good. What does that tangibly look like? And I'm curious if I have some thoughts on it. I don't want to put you on the spot. This wasn't necessarily on the outline, but what are your, when you hear the phrase, find your confidence in God, what comes to mind for you?
Very quickly, I'll say and briefly give it back to you. What I would say is recognize the value that God sees in you. Recognize the fact that God saw you as worthy enough to send his son to die for you.
That's right.
That's a pretty good reason to be confident, right? Not to be arrogant, but to say, man, God thinks that about me. The all-powerful, almighty, all-knowing God cares enough about me to send his son so that I could live with him forever, so that I could have a relationship with him. Pretty confidence-boosting thing. And so I don't know if that's what you're going for, but that's where my mind first went.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
You can't drop in value in God's eyes. You literally can't drop because he saw you as valuable enough for him to send Christ in the depths of your sin. Read Romans 5 and come away with anything other than confidence.
You think about how a lot of guys, if they could pick a celebrity to be friends with, right? It'd be a big sports icon or maybe a big actor or YouTuber or whatever. Not that God is our friend, don't get me wrong, but hey, you get to have a relationship with God. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of trumps everything
And he wants
else.
a relationship with you.
Exactly.
And he paved the way for you to go, hey, I really want to know you, and here's how you can get to know me. Like, what?
Right.
The almighty God of the universe? There's a confidence, a level of confidence in that no matter how far you've fallen, no matter how much you've done, no matter how goofy you are, how many dumb things you've done, how many sins you've committed, God loves you. He's there
God
for you,
wants you,
and he
yeah.
always sees you as valuable. So that's the last.
Well,
do
and
I
that
would
by
say.
itself is a reason to have confidence. And so
That's
if
right.
you're watching, as we get ready to wrap up, as you're watching this, have confidence. For reasons like what we just talked about, have confidence in the things that you're good at. Don't let it turn into arrogance because it very easily can. Next week, stay tuned. February 14th, going to be dropping on Valentine's Day. We're going to talk about how to talk to girls. We're going to get very into the practical of, culture has really perverted the male-female relationship. Us as young men need to know, how do we treat sisters in Christ? How do we treat them maybe before we're ready for marriage, maybe when we're ready for marriage? Kind of this idea of, man, I don't even know how to talk to girls. It kind of goes into this confidence thing. So that's going to be a really fun episode. As always, drop a comment, drop a question. If you have something that you think we left out of this episode, comment on YouTube. If you're a Facebook user, comment on there. But other than that, unless you have anything else to wrap us up with, we thank you very much for joining us for episode 6 of the Godly Young Men podcast.